Help Save Our World Speak 64. The transition continued. Hello and welcome to our 64th Help Save Our World Speak online speakers meeting, where we are spreading hope by changing the conversation to change our world. I am Denis, the teacher of this quest for the truth, change and transformation. We and our world are dying. All life on planet Earth is racing towards extreme suffering and inevitable extinction because of our civilized way of life. We are creating imbalance and instability in all of our life-sustaining ecosystems. But there is another way. We, the people, have been lied to and misguided by the people in power. This misguidance has caused us to harm ourselves and destroy our once life-sustaining planet. Now, our only hope is for you to go on your quest for the truth so you can change and transform your way of life. This questioning and thinking will empower you with the knowledge, the skills, and the natural wisdom that you need to think clearly, choose wisely, and begin transitioning towards a new paradigm and better, happy, healthy, and sustainable future. Just by traveling through this thought journey, you'll be awakening yourself to the truth, become more aware, conscious, and enlightened. Thus, you will make wise choices and change your way of life and change how you raise your children. Then just by living this new way of life, you will naturally change the world that you manifest around you. Then, leading from the front, you will guide and teach and lead others towards that happy, healthy, and sustainable way of life, which this movement will ultimately spread worldwide, so we can help save our world and all life on Mother Earth together. Let's begin with introductions. Curt?
Well, I love the idea that we're here for each one to teach one or each one to teach many. And probably the most critical conversation that we have in life, and that's how do we sustain ourselves and sustain the world at the same time. I'm Curt. I'm in South Florida, where it's a beautiful, almost spring day. And I just wonder about how we're able to continue on the path we're on and still maintain the wonderful Garden of Eden that we've been given, at least in my part of the world. So I'm here to continue that conversation on how to do that.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Curt. Alex?
Wow, that was brilliant. I'm here to help change the conversation and to get on board with others to help save the world. So I'm Alex and I'm here in South Africa.
Excellent. Thank you. Brendon?
Hi, I'm Brendon. I'm from South Africa as well. I'm part of this conversation to help change the world as we know it currently to a better, brighter future for not only us, but for our future generations to come. And with the help of this group and everybody in the world, actually, we can make that happen, I believe.
Excellent. Thank you, Brendon. All right, let's move on to the next thing. So I didn't finish that concept that I was talking about last week. So we're continuing with Chapter Violet, the transition. And our topic today is that continuation of last week's topic. From a vibrations, energy, change, patterns, and flow perspective. Think of the fork in the road of life, going along, and then there's just one direction you can go on or another. Firstly, there's this natural choice fork in the road of life that leads to a happy, healthy, and sustainable life of abundance, where we all live in love, balance, and harmony and thrive in a living, growing paradise on earth. Or secondly, the other route, the unnatural man-made road leading to immediate gratification, taking, plundering, short-term wealth and power, resulting in destruction, extreme suffering, and inevitable extinction. There is a distinct difference between aligning with the natural energy flow of nature, life, and the galaxy and the universe, or choosing to go with the unsustainable flow of money, owners, governments, religions, and civilizations. You see, the latter takes life and energy from the flow of nature and life and redirects it away from the natural flow of life. It's like bloodletting or siphoning of life's energy, your human energy, life force and power for dead money, dead things, abstract ownership, power and control. This system takes energy and power from people, animals, living systems, and our world for the benefit of a few. In this way, it's creating an unsustainable world with inequality and unsustainable imbalances throughout our previously naturally balancing systems. Uncivilizations, corporations, governments, owners are like leeches sucking the lifeblood out of Mother Nature, sucking energy out of Mother Nature's energy flow, taking that energy, which we all depend on to give life and sustain our lives. They are turning living ecosystems into dead things for profits. Killing and destroying are real problems, especially with the absolutist worldview when ideas are taken to the nth degree, like concrete dam walls, damming major rivers, taking private ownership of all the water, then selling it for money into the cities, and leaving nothing for life downriver, then expecting natural life to continue downstream, or maybe not expecting it. Who gives the dam owners the right to ownership of rivers' waters? It's actually we who do so when we accept it and pay for it and depend upon it. Our only safety net is in our independence from those systems, which we can create by design. And of course, I've been going through a lot of permaculture design lately, reminding me of all of these systems, which we used when we were kids on our own independent, sustainable eco-village and native trading store we had when we were children. Owners are not the only ones to blame. Unfortunately, we the people as citizens and city dwellers are the consumers of dead products who just by living our way of lives within that unsustainable system are making that centralization of wealth and power and destruction of our world happen. We pollute and harm our world by consuming and discarding without returning our biodegradable waste to our living systems and polluting non-biodegradable garbage. Our unnatural and unsustainable life compounds our problems. We cannot point fingers and blame others if we are part of the problem. Owners and citizens alike are killing us, themselves, or life, and killing Gaia herself, all for some abstract notion of success. What are money and success worth if you and all life on earth are extinct? We are all responsible for our world and making it a better living world to live in. So our creative, sowing, nurturing inputs needs to be greater than our taking. And we can only do that if we design, create, and grow our independence from societal systems. And we do this by collecting and using water effectively, like drain off from water tanks and from our roofs, providing us with fresh water and swales and catchment dams. There are a multitude of different ways in which we can actually use water effectively and store for droughts and to ensure that we have a sustainable future. Nurturing and building topsoil. There's so many wonderful techniques I was going through in permaculture, growing food all around us, biodiversity, polycultures, and literally using plants from all around the world to create the biodiversity around us to make our lives sustainable. Using natural and renewable energy sources around us and ultimately decentralizing and doing the same thing spread out on the land. Renewable resources are things like water flows downstream. It can drive paddle wheels, the wind blow, the sun shines. There's all of these sort of relatively easily accessible forms of energy if we just design well and plan well. Bearing in mind that life naturally multiplies what we sow and grow, gives us more than we put in if we do it right. So learning how to design and create a life-sustaining system is well covered in, of course, natural agriculture and permaculture and many other gardening systems. We need to study natural systems, ancient sustainable cultural ways, and use available and sustainable technologies to enhance our natural and sustainable ways of life. We also need to study many alternative healing modalities and natural scientific nurturing discoveries and spread this necessary knowledge and wisdom around the world. So one of our big journeys is learning and expanding our knowledge base and our wisdom to be able to give so much more of ourselves to those who really need it. There are so many other sources of information out there specific to your region, like what plants grow in this region and what sort of temperatures will they tolerate, and many other variables. We no longer need to live in an age of ignorance. We have the power to choose and change. And we have Google and all of these incredible available resources and books and knowledge. We can achieve amazing things if we want to. However, more important than anything else, if you do not change your thoughts, behaviors, and habits and way of life, you change nothing in the long run. You will just continue to make the same mistakes again and again, creation and destruction. In creating the new future, we need to make sure that it's sustainable. That's why the quest for the truth, change, and transformation is so important as the foundations to your transition to a happy, healthy, and sustainable and abundant future where we all thrive. All right, open to the floor. Curt?
I think I always have something to say these days. Yeah.
That's good.
You recalled to me a couple of things I've seen this week, mostly in the news, I guess, but there was a stream or a river in Oregon that was recently undammed, and for the first time in I think 50 or 60 years, the salmon have been able to spawn upstream naturally again, which has led to a great resurgence of breeding that we've curtailed over the decades because we wanted the water for whatever purposes we wanted it. So this is a big change for the positive. Our new president here has curtailed, I think, the mining of uranium in some of the indigenous people's lands that the previous administration had okayed in the last couple of months of its term. So there's some positive things that are starting to happen. Return of land to indigenous people, again, more rights for people and acknowledge them as true equal citizens of the world, rather than putting them into small little cubicles that they have no opportunity or possibility to grow out of. At the same time, the current administration is looking at nuclear power as a viable part of our energy program moving forward. So it just kind of reminds me that we can make positive steps towards, and at the same time, we can do really stupid things to counterbalance them. And I think this has been maybe the growth of civilization for forever, maybe. And I don't know, I didn't live through all of it consciously anyway. So I think what we're doing is an important step to understanding how we can continue to keep this planet on a survivability trajectory. And at the same time, we get to realize that there have been, there are, and there likely always will be forces that push against us for irrational or selfish or personal reasons that we continue to have to deal with. So it's a conversation. And again, if we could change that conversation of those that are thinking in the using up the resources because this is the only life I have and I could care less about the eons in the future, to change that thinking into, yeah, I think contributing to the betterment of our world while I'm living in it is a worthwhile and noble way to live our lives. So that's why this conversation and spreading it is so important.
Thank you, Curt. That's amazing. I don't know where you stand on the whole nuclear thing, but it's really interesting to me that did we not learn from Fukushima? Did we not learn from Chernobyl? Did we not learn, we have all of this nuclear waste being generated and there is no place to put it because it has such a long life cycle or decay cycle. And it's like the more we use it, the more we head towards basically poisoning our planet for our children. So, there are other resources and places. I mean, like just using the currents of the ocean, just using the tidal variation every single day, that's incredible amounts of energy beyond anything we can imagine, and then just using the sunshine and the winds and whatever. It's just, these are incredible resources. Like more energy comes in every day from the sun than we could possibly even imagine ever using, It's like, so there are better ways, there are other ways, but I think it's the lobbyists and the lack of education of the presidents. I mean, yeah, they're listening to people in power and people who are trying to force the agenda, but don't you think our presidents need an education? Yeah. And our ministers and, senators and whoever?
I agree 100% with that.
Carry on, Curt.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, hell yes, they do. Yeah, and I'm not sure that they're not educated in much of this. I think that the filters that they put on in order to play the role that they think they're playing keep them from allowing that information to come in. I'm sure that there are many people in both administrations, the previous one and the current one, that get that nuclear power and nuclear weapons and all the other aspects of raping the earth are not good for the long term. But I think, as you mentioned, people are in it for the short term. What's in it for me now? I won't live 100 years from now, and the people that lived before me are dead, and they gave me this world that I live in, so I'm out for myself. And I think that's become the prevailing conversation in so many of the inhabitants of Earth. And it's interesting that the people that have are the ones that promote that concept more than the people that don't. I think the amount of poverty on Earth, the amount of people in poverty on Earth, if we could poll them, most of them would say, yes, let's maintain our resources. They're critical for survival because they're living at the survival level. And those that have comfort, and we went through this conversation a few weeks ago, those that have comfort are less likely to lift a finger to do something about being responsible for the resources and consumption that they do in order to have that comfort. So yeah, it's a conversation that still needs to be spread. And if we go from the top down, from the billionaires and the elite and the however else they get there, even if it's not money, it just could be power. From those that continue to push this conversation of selfishness and greed and chosen ignorance. If we can get those to change the conversation, maybe things will change. Because I think the most of us are probably aligned with, yeah, I want to live in a world that's nice and not a world that has my garbage around my feet and my neighbor's feet.
Pretty much, to me, it like this thing, it comes back, design of the system. This is how the system's designed. And if you change the the design of the system goes away and a new way of life comes into being. So maybe they're hanging on for dear life to what is unsustainable because that's the only way they think and know, they will keep their power and so on, as you were saying. So the next thing is beyond the minimum threshold. We know life gives life to life. So for life to exist in the natural world, every living species has to produce enough to continue to survive and increase. And it is only their excess that gives sustainable life to other life. A breeding pair of jaguars, the top predator in the Amazon jungle, requires 35,000 hectares of healthy, natural, functioning system to survive. And we humans are top predators on our planet. Changing our requirements for life and how we live it is our only hope. There is a critical point at which living plants, insects, and animals begin to support the herbivore, omnivore, and predator sustainably with their excess. Think of it in terms of energy. Suppose you do not convert enough energy into life, procreate and provide abundant natural energy and power to all living systems and our planet. In that case, we cease to exist as living energy beings and as a living planet. Remember, the expansion and growth comes from the excess energy or living systems beyond the basic required energy for life. Or think of it as profits in economic terms. If you don't make a profit after your capital investment, cost of sales, depreciation, etc., your business is not viable or sustainable. The same goes for living systems. The more life our way of life kills, the closer we are to death. The natural viability threshold happens way before the end. This is a sobering thought to me. The realization that our fate is a lot closer than we think. The end of the road begins way before we realize it within species. For example, a minimum biological number or viable population of a species required to avoid extinction. Thus, numbers and complexity or biodiversity and the balances of nature are critical to sustainability. A broken chain of life results in collapsing biodiversity and ecosystems. Losing keystone species like bees and other pollinators makes this happen much faster. The cost of excessive flesh production, the inefficiency of that production, and the waste and pollution of industrial flesh production are very destructive to our environment. I think of the Amazon jungle, clear cutting and then cropping and herding, leading to desertification. Then I ask, how much deforestation, overgrazing, and land degradation does it take to produce flesh? How much suffering does it take before we make a choice or better choices? Just by changing what we eat, we can make a massive difference in our world, like saving habitat for humanity and all life. We can also have an enormous effect on our health by changing our diet. With excessive meat and flesh consumption, the moment humans begin to eat too much or too many of the next generation of life or the offspring of the breeding pairs, they cannot ensure the next generation. The loss of megafauna with the arrival of humans on different continents throughout human history proves this. Eventually, having no choice, the breeding pairs on the dinner plate, and there is no coming back. For that reason, and for many humanitarian reasons and health reasons, we should all be vegetarians or vegans. Humans as omnivores have that choice, where most other carnivores and herbivores don't. Just as an important warning, learning how to become a healthy vegan or vegetarian is a wonderful journey if it is done well. However, doing it without understanding the basic principles and doing it well can be harmful to your health. So get some guidance, do the research, and have an incredible journey of recreating the balances in your life and re-bringing in the health into your life. Whatever your new choices or desired transition, a healthy, happy, and sustainable life is a journey to learn how to do it well. All right, open to the floor.
So yes, Dennis, I think you touched on a number of great points there, and certainly the vegan vegetarian conversation, and I love the metaphors you used of bodies on our flesh on our plates. If people get that that's actually what's happening, maybe they would be more prone to not eat. But at the same time, I think the quest for survival forces people to eat whatever they can get from the system, especially if they're not growing their own, then they're reliant on a system that provides it to them. And depending on their color or their neighborhood, maybe the system may or may not give them stuff that they really need. So yeah, we need to be concerned and continually be concerned about our consumption levels and what it is we're alive for. And unfortunately, so many of the people now are alive to survive, not alive to thrive. And those that thrive are doing it by manipulation of resources and power, rather than collaboration and thought for the future. So again, it's the critical conversation that we have is why do some who have power and influence and authority choose to make it for their own personal benefit and the benefit of the community? And I mean, it's a big conversation. Is it survival of the fittest by who can run the economy or the army the best? Or who's fittest to lead the masses into reconnection with their ability to survive in relationship with the earth? And a huge conversation, and it's happy that it's happy. I'm happy as well, but it's important that we keep it alive, regardless of how many of us there are at any particular time.
Excellent. Thank you for that. That's awesome. But you know, something of interest that came up was I was going through this design course with Jeff Lawton again, and just going through his take on it. And it's not for him a matter of eating animal protein. I mean, he creates fish farms and he uses chicken tractors to fertilize the soil. And he eats or sells or whatever the flesh of the chickens and the eggs and whatever as a way of maintaining his whole farm. But the difference is that the chickens are raised in a happy, natural environment. And if there's overproduction, which is the opposite of what I've just been talking about, and the excess is not consumed by the system, then it becomes equally a problematic situation. So if fish are breeding at this incredible rate, and now you've got nothing that you can do with them, you can either return them to the land as fish food, or you can let humans eat them, make more money to be able to carry on with what you're doing in permaculture, and then let the humans return it to the land, you know, through human manure and so on. So the thing is, it's, I think, a totally different way of looking at, instead of, you know, herbicides and pesticides in the food, and then hormones to get the incredible weight and the grazing and the destruction of land and rainforests and all of the negative things that go into modern industrial flesh creation, we could live in a harmonious situation where it would, the meat that we would eat would be raised naturally, happily, and then it wouldn't be a problem. But I think it's, again, the absolutism and the extremes to which we take things is another major factor.
Yeah, that stimulates in me a conversation of why people would do things like that, meaning overproduction, waste, etc. And it came to me that people are not responsible for their level of comfort. And again, if comfort is where people are aiming towards as a premise, then be responsible for that. And I get that along with comfort is the denial of responsibility, because I feel more comfortable when I don't have to be responsible. Now, of course, I'm making this up as a thought process here. But I also get that when people are responsible for their actions, even to the smallest ones, such as in a conversation with another human being, where we might let our anger take over rather than our thinking about what's the best relationship I could create in this moment, to the grander things of who am I going to vote for, and am I ceding my power to somebody who's not really doing anything. And it came to me that those that are responsible, I didn't want to say assume or take, because responsibility is an internal thing. It's not something we get from outside. Those that are being responsible often show up as the activists, the protesters, the people that are looking to change the conversation paradigm that exists, because they have taken a look at it and are being responsible for who they are on the planet. So that conversation of responsibility, I think, is huge in having people change their ways and having us change the pyramid schemes of civilization that have grown up so far. And it's been a conversation that's been well bred and propagandized out of our thought and out of our habits, again, because we're comfortable and they've given us more and more. Let us eat cake, give them cake, it's okay. As long as they're fed, they'll be compliant. And I think we're realizing that, no, that's not okay. And if we continue to do that, whether it be eat meat or, prick holes in the planet to extract, oil, or, use animals for our own purposes without acknowledging that they are living, breathing participants in life on this planet, we're going to continue down the path of destruction. So I would say that concept of responsibility gets to be part of our thinking from young ages. And I'll just tack on that unfortunately what we've seen through religion, and I'll speak for myself with the Christian religion, is that responsibility was pushed outside, and just give yourself to the Savior and things will be okay. Just say these words and it will be taken care of. And as we've seen, it's not. Whatever the tenets of Christianity or any of the other religions are, the actual application of them don't lead us to being personally responsible. They lead us to being personally irresponsible and ceding our power to an unknown, unseen force, which, as we've been realizing, at least in this country in the past many years, leads to nefarious people usurping that position for their own benefit and taking the place of this hypothetical deity that, as far as we can tell, is not here, leading us towards a path of personal responsibility in our life. I know it's a big topic, but I just wanted to put it in there because it seems critical to how do we change the masses? It's, relieve them of the imposed thinking that is upon them, that things will be taken care of them if they just whatever it might be.
Yeah, I love that. The bottom line is give up your power to us and we'll take responsibility for everything. And we'll provide you with your comfort and everything and feed you. Basically, you just have to play the game. But ultimately, the game is killing your world. So you need to say, okay, well, it's time to take back responsibility for my life, to take back my power and start to establish my independence from this dependence that I'm living within. And that's a critically important factor. Hello, Lorna. How are you?
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Lorna.
All right, so let's just go into this thing. This thought direction brings me back to look from a different perspective at our current errors of our ways and why it is necessary to transition. We are either part of the problem or part of the solution. We need to awaken and realize that our dominant paradigm, old paradigm, that controls most of our societal systems is unsustainable because of the rulers, the religions, the kings, the empires, governments, presidents, senators, representatives, courts, legal systems, NGOs, lobbyists, corporations, owners, power-hungry groups, etc. Their vision, purpose, abstract ideas, lies, deception, and focus are unsustainable and destructive to our world. Their fundamental structures are monopolistic pyramid schemes designed to centralize ownership, wealth, and power. They use humans as a power source of energy, labor, and power. The system was designed to enslave the population into a labor-based economy. Why do you think slavery has been such a problem throughout recent American history? This enslavement is done by using force and systematized conditioning, dumbing down of people, and domesticating them. The forceful taking of free human energy through slavery was the design of the original system. Rulers used humans and animals to do their work and fight their wars to accumulate more resources, wealth, and power for them at the expense of everyone and everything. These monopolistic pyramid schemes with short-term destructive, immediate gratification, taking plundering wars, self-entitlement, greed, wealth, power, and egotism of the few at the expense of everyone and everything, that only happens at an extreme cost to Mother Nature and life in our world and our world. The actual real and natural energy and power are not in those things. They're in natural and biological energy systems. The sun's energy, living systems on the land, the weather, the winds, the rains, the energy in the waters of the rivers, the life in the rivers, the currents, the waves, the tides, and life within rivers and oceans. Nature's long-term big picture is the long-term design of life, growing, living, biodiversity, ecosystems, longevity, sustainability, love, balance, and harmony, weathering, wind, water, heat, cold, ice ages, breaking up rocks into stones and pebbles and sands and clays, from microorganisms right the way through the chain of life, contributing to creating biodiversity, living topsoils, and growing successions of species of plant and animal life, evolving and changing over more extended periods of time, and holding on to the niches, the opportunities, and the relationships in the environment, expanding edges, competing for sunlight and energy, cooperating and developing, interwoven with complex relationships are cornerstones of sustainability. Biodiversity, complexity, succession, growth of species, thriving, spreading outwards across the land, fresh waters and oceans into abundance, adapting to different environments, mitigating the extremes of weather and rain and heat, and creating water sponge, forest floors, root systems, creating corridors of water flow into the earth, holding on to and absorbing rains, storing water in the topsoils and the groundwaters, which ensure the perpetuation of life, and creating regular rainfalls with the transpiration of water, condensation and rainfalls of rainforests, grassland succession into small shrubs and trees, and if left alone, they'll eventually grow into complex jungles. This timescale of the natural spreading and regeneration of life into sustainable complexity can be accelerated by us humans, by design. There are many examples of this potential in natural agriculture, permaculture, and many ancient food forests and ancient cultures worldwide, like the regreening of the Chinese Loose Plateau by John D. Liu. There are many examples of what can be done in permaculture. Jeff Lawton has phenomenal videos on what they've achieved by going out to various places of the world and teaching permaculture. So anybody want to comment?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Again, I love this subject of transformation. I think, how can I transform myself, right? To start with, so I can be a better co-creator with the world, right? So a couple of things come to mind. One, to practice and use more the resource of the science of deliberate creation within myself. Like, in other words, set up my day, what I want to do, how it has worked for me. Let's say if I have started the day, when I start using this tool, I have to do this, I have to do that. No, somehow it was too much of, it wouldn't work for me. You know, they will end and I wouldn't achieve it. So, but when I met this law of deliberate creation, it didn't happen overnight, and it's different for everybody. But I have to say that the more I do it, I really am so surprised that it really is working for me, because I started to believe that it's really kind of magical, but it's real, because the results are real. And if I say, for instance, I want to finish my vision board, or I want to really have an afternoon that is very productive, and not just to do it, but just make me feel good about it. That's my key, right? Make me feel good about it at the end of the day. And it really happens. But it's because I already have deliberately, I said, this is what I want today. Until I start to believe that it's really up to me, but it manifests and I really end up enjoying. When I don't use that, I go like upstream, like the river, trying to, make it happen. So this tool and many others out there, of course, is like a downstream, which is so easier and a lot of things get accomplished. I got something yesterday. This is not mine talking, but I can identify with it. I'm going to read it. It says, "The stream is the current. Love is the manager. And I am, or we are, the willing float teamboat." So I think that's why we part of this kind of groups. We want to co-create and so, yes, to use more the law of non-resistant deliberate creation and allow things to happen. So that transformation that we're searching for, it will happen easier and hopefully quicker,
I love that. I love the idea of the realization that we are these energy flows and we are part of this incredibly creative energy flow. And by consuming the energy we consume and directing it with our choices, We are this creative flow of life. We are able to manifest all sorts of things that we couldn't possibly dream of. It's like, or we think we couldn't. Our limitations are our own imagination and our desire to do it. And it really is this instead of like thinking of something as I have to, I get to, and then just going out and doing it and realizing that not everything happens instantaneously. It's a journey. It's like, I want to get fitter. So I started walking about a lot more regularly about 2-3 weeks back. And then this last week, I've progressed to being able to jog and walk, and I've been feeling pretty good about it. My bones and my muscles are starting to adapt and whatever. And I'm losing weight. And so the thing is when you're younger, you're able to create and whatever so much faster. But still, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't choose to and become the better you just because, you can. And just flow with it, Don't fight against it. Don't try and paddle upstream. Although I used to do that as a kid. That was my way of training to be fitter at paddling downstream, was to paddle upstream. Anyway, so yeah, that's wonderful. Anyone? Any comments? So the next thing is questers. I'd say we've got about, if we sort of add in for the time lost, if everyone's happy with that, we've got another 12 minutes or so. Is that all right with everyone? Everyone, good.
That's
Questers.
perfect.
All right, good. Thank you. Those who have traveled this journey and know the big picture have to write, design, and create a new visionary worldview, cultural system, a paradigm based on your need to choose love, life, and responsible living, and the long-term sustainability, living within and as one with Gaia, in a hurry before it's too late. What you help sow and grow in the hearts and the minds and the lands and the fresh waters and sea waters and the seas of the world will ensure your future and the future of all life. You are transitioning from dependence, destruction, and pollution to independence, health, and happiness. Returning into alignment with the garden is not a choice. It is a requirement for life. Investing your life's energy and effort into improving life is a requirement for sustainable living, because we are rapidly accelerating past the thresholds of no return. You can't stand still on the moving train of thought and behavior of the old paradigm. This uncivilized thought plague train is heading as far as out of alignment, that road out of alignment, as you can possibly imagine. Thus, it's rampantly killing the garden we depend on for life. Either we get off the train and change the direction back into living in love, balance, and harmony, and in alignment with that creative flow of nature and life, or you and all life will suffer extremely badly. And as Curt says, many people are suffering from starvation and hunger around the world because of this way of thinking. And very soon, we will all life will cease to exist. It is time to pay the piper before our children are gone forever. If you who haven't traveled this journey, this quest for the truth, change, and transformation, is the most fundamentally important thing you can do to ensure survival and sustainability into the future. Creating this paradigm shift, the shift in your way of thinking and living, then influencing others to do the same, is fundamental to our collective coexistence. Without them, the others, changing as well, there is no hope for the future left. And it all begins with going on this journey of quest and seeking, thinking, and questioning everything in search of the truth. Your journey of self-discovery will lead you to awaken, choosing and changing and learning the knowledge, skills, and wisdom which you need to make better choices. While this is happening, you will be progressing from a lack awareness, consciousness, and natural wisdom, and eventually to seeing with enlightened eyes. So you can never be lied to, cheated, or with abstract ideas, biased ideas, half-truths and outright lies, which we receive like in abundance from our political systems. Thus empowered, you will never fall into their traps again. If you don't know, how can you change the system? You need to know. Or you'll also be creating the future cultures of thoughtfulness, love, balance, and harmony, and a healthy, happy, sustainable future you and all life and your children deserve to live in. Doing all of the above combined with you raising your children in this new love-based paradigm, you ensure mankind survives extinction, lives in paradise on earth, and never makes the same mistakes again. Okay, that's it. Anybody?
We need to teach our children because trying to teach adults is really difficult.
I agree with that 100%. I mean, adults are, you have to treat adults more like children to teach them than you need to teach children like children. It's one of those things that you must have learned, Curt, from training people.
Yes. And there are some adults that run tantrums like children. So exactly. They're more entitled than even infants are in figuring out how to get what they want. I don't know what it will take to be able to shift the conversations of the current crop of adults in the world and to clear off the existing embedded conversations that they've left for their progeny, for the people that follow them. And we still get to work on doing that because there's not a whole lot of other choice.
Lorna?
Yes, I definitely, I want to put more, I do put my efforts more into children and youngsters, than adults. And because it's not that I don't have any interest, but, I left it alone, deliberately, not to pass on what I think is right, and it will help us all. And the more I do that, it's like I don't do it purposely as a reverse psychology at all, but it works sometimes like that. The people get curious why Lorna has not calling me or addressing certain issues with me. For instance, my neighbor, we talk on the phone, and she said, you called one day very recently, said, Lorna, will you help me to learn to meditate? And I have been her neighbor 5 years, and I suggested a lot of time. So I think that is one way, at least how I'm doing it. And definitely with kids, with my grandson, I deliberately, again, when it's my days to take care of him, I'm very excited about what I want to learn from him. That I'm very, very serious about it, because I try not to tell him too much, this is this way, this is this way, because I think that his infinite wisdom at that, and the purity of his thinking, of his vibration, I would say at that age, right? It's better than anything else. I did a little, it was by chance, I sing to him a lot and all that, but I had played for him the Ave Maria. I don't know if you know that song, Ave Maria, right? Not for religious purpose, right? And but before that, I played a version that was not that vibration of the Ave Maria, which is very high vibration, right? I played something like a very, very, very simple with some other people, and he loved it, and he focused. I could feel his vibration really nice, but then I get carried away, right? And then a couple of days later, I played the Ave Maria, the very, very strong vibration, and he didn't like it at all. So then I said, oh, I have to respect where he's at. But yet I learned right? And now when I go, I just observe him a lot till he wants to actually, want something from me. And I'm taking notes. I'm taking notes. I agree with Alex, I think, said about the kids, right?
You know, the thing is, ultimately, the quickest way is if we could just take all of the adults off the planet and we taught all of the kids this natural way of living, that would be it. It would be like one generation, done deal, everything's fixed. But unfortunately, parents are what the children look up to and aspire to be like. So they are the biggest influencing factors in children's lives. And the parents are the ones making the major decisions right now for their lives and for their futures. So unless we concentrate effort in both areas, like on the adults and on the children, I don't think we will achieve what we're trying to achieve fast enough, because it might take many generations of parents and children and parents and children for it eventually to ease its way in. And that's not fast enough. By that time, we'll be extinct, we'll be long gone. So we need education systems for parents and children alike. And of course, many different levels. We need from the most fundamental fairy tales. And Alex watched a movie earlier on today, and it was about, saving nature. And it was a children's video. And I'm going to watch it this evening, But unless we all start moving towards that future, and very quickly, we are in serious trouble. So, Alex?
I 100% agree.
And what was that movie called?
Zycone. It's Xion's Journey.
None of these movies or whatever are perfect, but it's like, here's an example of somebody who's like thinking about making a difference for the children. So, and in permaculture, there's a lot of books actually being written by permaculture teachers for children. So, like, it's a wonderful way to get your children involved. And I think ultimately, like I go through as later on, like in the next couple of weeks, I start going through what we need to do in creating a structure to educate children, to educate the adults, and actually going through the vision, the purpose, and the structure of how to do it. I think once we've like written, everyone like in the group has like got that sort of idea of like what we're trying to do. And if somebody chooses like, hey, I want to do children's books, then boom, they go off in that direction. And I want to create an artistic sort of thing, package or whatever, and they do that. And we're just like, this is a lot bigger than us in this group. It begins with these fundamental principles, but it just grows out from there. It becomes, this magical growth of this incredible life-transforming sort of creative expression of the greater of humanity, as opposed to being something that we hold on to and we are like this is our thing. And no, that it has to grow into this amazing, magical, creative life force that just spreads out across the planet. Well, that's my dream anyway. And anyway, so I think we've well reached the end of our time.
I have just one thing to input here. I happened to watch a recent David Attenborough film. I'm sure all of us are aware of who he is, and it was just produced in 2020, so it's fairly recent. It's on Netflix. I know not everybody gets it, and I'll get you the title. I don't remember it now, but it's basically a recap of his life. He's now 93 or 94 years old, and it begins in the 1950s when he started to do his privileged, and he admits it, that he lived a very privileged and charmed life. Being able to study nature all around the world. And those of you that have seen him over our lifetimes know some of the wonderful stuff he's produced. And one of the things that he showed he did it by decade, the films and the places he was involved in. And every decade he would show at the beginning the population count, the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, and the amount of untouched land on the planet. And we can see just from those three numbers, the incredible amount of impact we've had just in certainly our lifetimes for the older population on this call. And it's been the total lifetime of Brendon and Alex. So also a good film to watch because it shows in a loving and just wondrous way the experience that this man had with nature. And at the same time, it just shows how with whatever great things he's done over the decades, it still hasn't had the impact. And here's a man who has been able to fund some of the most wonderful nature films around. So it kind of struck me that since the advent of television and cities and other things like that, over time, though, we've grown away from our contact with nature, and we're almost happy to experience it in films and TV shows than we are actually going out and putting our feet in the earth. So just as a cap to the conversation, and another film that I think we all should watch, just as absolute relevance to what we're up to. So when you get a chance, and I'll post the title of the film because I don't remember it at this moment, but it just reinforces where we're at and what we need to do in order to be able to continue having these natural experiences close by to us, not in some far off land.
Yeah, that's absolutely wonderful. I mean, I love his work, and the great thing is that there is a lot more sharing and a lot more. There are, I think, marketers getting involved with his stuff and promoting it. And there was a wonderful thing the other day of a young woman speaking a poem about him, and just brilliant stuff. So there's like a resurgence of putting his stuff out there, which I think is absolutely wonderful. But on our level, we're focusing on our gardens a lot more. We've been like planting stuff and putting in different mulches and trying different things. And, Brendon's been bringing a lot of inspiration and going back to permaculture and so on. We are like stepping outdoors more often, and with the running and everything, we're taking it to another level. And, so we're trying to, as much as possible, walk the walk. Anyone else?
The David Attenborough film is a life on our planet.
It's awesome. Absolutely awesome stuff. I've been so into his stuff over the years. Whenever I see something new, I'm like, sure. But getting a perspective of our lifetime and what's happened is so invaluable. It's priceless,
It just recalled to me the wonderful films that Jacques Cousteau did in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and putting right into our faces, this is the beauty and this is the impact we're having on it. And still we are where we are today. So it gets to be a continued effort. And, just imagine if everybody did 5 minutes of service to the planet per day, just 5 minutes. Picking up some garbage, planting something, weeding something. Just imagine the impact that we could have. But we're not doing that yet.
Yeah, but I feel it is accelerating, this rise in consciousness and the awareness and the information and the feedback from people all around the world. It's just like, it's all of a sudden, I think the penny's dropping. But I think one of our problems with this situation that we're in, we don't have enough money invested in marketing what we're saying. If I was able to get some resources in some way to promote these videos, advertise them on Facebook, I think we would have a lot more impact. Like, I think that's what's happening with David Attenborough's stuff, is it's having an impact because it's out there. Right now we have like 3% of the people that I know get the videos, and there's a lot of loyalty there, but but in terms of the greater population, not reaching anybody. So it's sad, but we can maybe work towards creating the capital we need to be able to put it out there. So I don't know, just maybe that's one of the next steps in the journey. Anyway, Lorna, last words?
I think we're doing what we're supposed to be doing now. Because we're saying yes, and we are sticking to it. And I just want to mention when you talk about being this age, like seniors, that we may not be able to do certain things again. But we just gotta. Someone passed that on. We might be running in less cylinders, if you will. But the compensation law here, and that took me a while to accept it because I thought it was very greedy or arrogant. But the compensation law of the wisdom, I'm going to say it's wide open, that we get if we allow it and work on it, which I think that's what we're doing, right? Even though we have
Absolutely.
Brendon and Alex, younger generations. That's a compensation law. So I think we don't need, this generation to struggle too much about to work with those cylinders that might not be like the younger people, but use that wisdom and the development of the consciousness that we really have it not together, but it's part of our lives that compensates that. And that is the offer. To me, that's the best offer that I could do. Sometimes I want to do volunteer work. I used to do, like Curt, just being in food banks and serving breakfast and all that, which I love. And I would love to go back to that at least a little bit, right? But so I use my other resources, which is love, and be there, when somebody needs it. So it's gold. There is gold in every generation, I'm trying to say.
Absolutely. And that's why in ancient cultures, the adults were highly respected. And the Zulus, when I walk down the street, they shout out, Inchebe, which means beard, and it's their respect for their elders. If a man has a long beard, then he's an elder and should be respected. It's an absolutely wonderful cultural thing. So yeah. Anyone else? Alex, Brennan?
No, all good, yeah.
All right, good. Brennan?
All good here.
Good. All right, thank you, everyone. This has been a wonderful meeting. I appreciate you all, and I will see you through the week. If I don't see you through the week, I'll see you through the window.
Cheers,
You can't
guys.
cancel.
Bye all.
Bye.